Hi, it's Janice Dru-Bennett, and it's Saturday, July 17th, 2021, and this is the 11th session for the Career Shift Lift program, as well as the Social Shift Lift system for people who are looking to grow their careers or make a social impact. And in today's session, we will be focused on communicating and building trust as part of our last set on getting results and improving your social presence. We'll start by going through these slides, and then if there are any questions at the end, we'll record those separately and keep those at the end. So starting out with our session on communicating and building trust. As a reminder, we've gone through all three steps, and we're at the final stage of getting results as well as improving your social presence to be able to achieve those wins, track, measure, and communicate. And this particular session is focused on communication as well as building trust. I'm going to pause, unmute myself, and start the 2-minute timer so that we can have a moment of silence and ground ourselves. Thank you for taking the 2 minutes with me. And I feel like today I was really focused on hearing the sounds around me. I could hear the water and the little water fountain next to me, and the cars going by sounded louder than normal, although sometimes they zip by really loudly. So I think every time I take some silence, there's different things I notice in the moment. And sometimes thoughts just pop in my head as well. So it's always interesting to take that time. Now, the first part of this session in terms of building communication and trust is actually something I recently went through mini training with Sparkwise, and they have a free 1-month trial to do immersive training. It's like they call it HITS, or the high intensity workouts for your building management skills, leadership skills, or communication type skills. And the examples here show that it's about problem solving, communication, and leadership. And I think if you're focused on your career growth, these are 3 skills in a triangle that can really help get you promoted. And if you're focused on social impact, I think you also need all 3 of these to be able to bring people along with you and to be able to showcase your ability to help drive that impact. The first set of training I had done with them, and I got placed, I think somewhat randomly, but it was really, I think, great that the two types of training I worked on in the last month with Sparkwise were in the last 2 months were about executive level written communications, as well as building trust or influencing without authority, which we'll get to in a minute. So in the executive level written communication session with Sparkwise, they match you with 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 other people in a session where you're actually going through the exercise, and there's an example to work through and to discuss and to really kind of engage and be interactive, that helps really make the concepts set in and help you apply them somewhere in real life. And so one of the executive level written communication sessions was about dots and dashes. And I think a lot of us learned in high school using the outline format to kind of explain what's in a book. And similarly, when you're trying to convey a message, using your key topics or arguments and then supporting items to kind of express what you're trying to get across can help, whether you're summarizing something that happened or whether you're trying to present a case for something. And even this particular course was prepared using a dot dash format, so it makes it much quicker to see the bigger picture. And so this isn't the exact outline that I had originally created, but I just put in create a roadmap, expand your network, get your results, or improve your social presence, and what are the steps you need to get each of those done. And so even when you're preparing a presentation, it can be helpful to do the dots and dashes, because it's much easier to edit it around before you create the slides, and then get buy-in on the content before you put in the effort to kind of build something out that you might have to change later, or might be harder to see the overall picture across 20, 30, 40 slides versus 1 or 2 pages of dots and dashes. Another example of what executive level written communications can include are logical groupings, and starting with your main insight or takeaway, and then the insights that support that, as well as any data or research that support those insights. And so I pulled these from different sites where communicating from the top down, starting with your recommendation, is also something that a lot of management consulting training will teach you, and perhaps throughout your career you've learned. If you don't forget to start with the main point, people might lose it at the end. So starting with it and even ending with it again is clearly a reminder that that's a good way to explain what you're trying to do. And often I do put together communication so quickly and forget that that's the main point, starting that up front so that people know what you're looking for, and then see your supporting points is another great way to communicate. And then logical arguments, and in some workplaces, critical thinking is extremely important. And so being able to understand what is a good argument and what might be a bad argument, and how to use deductive and or inductive thinking. And one of the examples is, if you start with your argument and what's the storyline that will continue to support it to get to your kind of deductive answer. This particular one can be harder because it can break if any of your statements don't make sense, versus the pyramid structure where everything's supporting. If one of the supporting points doesn't work, the main argument might still be supported by the other legs. So trying different types of presenting logically and thinking critically can really help advance you. And so as you're seeking to get results, thinking about how to present those results and what kind of influence you're looking to make with that can help you get to the next level. So the building trust component was part of the influencing without authority mini intensive training with Sparkwise. And the triangle that Sparkwise showed was a mix of different trust triangles, which you may have also heard of. And the 3 points that Sparkwise mentioned were competence, motives, as well as kind of caring, or showing that you're making that connection. And so that's similar to this one that was on a consulting person's website, where he talks about competence, motives, and having that common purpose. And whether it's with a company or with a nonprofit organization, or it's your own mission, building trust with others is about developing that deep relationship, as well as showing that you can get the results. So being consistent and also demonstrating the motives. And part of the Sparkwise meeting there was thinking about how we come about building that in a particular case, and hearing others can really help you figure out, what maybe you're weaker at one point of the triangle or stronger at another. So just kind of assessing that for yourself and with others, and asking for the feedback. Because I feel like sometimes people will perceive you in a certain way, and they may not understand your motives, as an example, or if you jump right in trying to get results before finding your common purpose and common ground, then it might not be as effective in influencing. And I found these other kind of descriptions of how a team can be dysfunctional in terms of if there is no trust, or if you're fearing conflict, lacking commitment, not accountable to each other, and not attending to the results. These are kind of the examples of what might cause leadership to fall apart or a company to not succeed. As well as how do we ensure high performance in looking at our strategy, our vision, our brand and culture, our values, which are all part of the first set of training that we did in terms of figuring out our own values and our own vision and kind of roadmap ahead, and then developing those behaviors and executing. So this is similar to our process here too, expanding the network. Some leaders are very introverted, or perhaps just prefer to not expand their network. And so that's also kind of a culture that might be in your organization. And it's something I personally have experienced, where some leadership I've worked with are more internal versus external focused, and assessing whether that aligns with where you are, or how you can build the trust and build the influence with someone who is very different from you. That's all part of kind of growing your bench strength. And I've added some resources to the spreadsheet, and after I wrap up these slides, I'll go over some of those specific resources, and we'll have our interactive activity and questions. One of the kind of breadcrumbs that I followed through this particular website with Courageous Leaders was a character strengths and values inventory. And so I've added to the personality assessments, and at any given time, I think having that full picture of who you are and what your values are and what your strengths are can help you continue to push where you want to grow. Another book that I thought of by Anil Mishra and Karen Mishra is Becoming a Trustworthy Leader. Anil and I are both Princeton alumni, and when he sent me this book, I said, I'll put up a review. And I think that's an example of kind of following through. When you tell someone you're going to do something, you do it, and you do it as quickly as you can, because that also builds the trust, I think. And so after I finished reading the book, I put up the review on Goodreads here. And I also posted about them in August when I was doing my campaign on, change the world for the better, one person, one mission at a time, and thinking about how, Anil's known as Dr. Trust, or, the trust doctor. So just following through, he and his wife talk about learn how to apply the ROCC of trust, or reliability, openness, compassion, and competence. So there's all sorts of kind of aspects to trust building that I think being consistent and building habits, which is the topic I'll be talking about tomorrow night on Clubhouse, and we'll do the recording. That's something that I'm working on continuing to build myself, so that there's consistency in communications I'm sending out, and at work, being able to summarize what you've done. All of that on a regular basis will build the ongoing trust and the competence and the executive skill set to kind of move to that next level. And in speaking of summarizing what you've done, this is the kind of the last part of this training in terms of remembering to celebrate your wins. And I forget, I've been going to a number of webinars and masterclasses when I can, and one of them talked about starting your week, and it could have been a masterclass or a book, because I've also been just, I tend to be a fire hose of accepting information. And so one of the tips was you start your week celebrating your wins from last week, and end your week celebrating your wins from the week as well. And that makes me also think about kind of thinking about what wins you will want to make and kind of the timing of your wins as well. Because if you're on Friday and you're wrapping up the wins from last week, and then you get to Monday and you're thinking back to the same wins, are there additional wins that you might have that might have happened over the weekend, or is it the same wins that you thought of on Friday? So as you think about your wins, I encourage you to think about what you've achieved or what other kind of things you might be grateful for. And just even yesterday or today, it's early in the morning. So depending on what you're happy about, I'm happy about having my coffee. And maybe in the last week, I'm excited that I've sent out 2 emails, because I think consistency, you've done it once, it doesn't show that it's consistent yet. So I sent out an email newsletter 2 weeks ago for the first time through the Podia platform. And then this past Friday, I did it again. So to me, that is, I'm establishing some consistency. And then in the last month, so we're in the month of July. So between June and July, anything kind of that you can celebrate. And I know in my lifetime, also kind of reminding me of what are the things that people have said positive about you, and kind of reviewing positive testimonials or reviews or anything that just kind of lights you up, that reminds you of what people appreciate about you, can help you kind of push you forward as well. So remembering to celebrate your wins and think about what makes you happy and what makes you thankful. And also thinking ahead can also perhaps make you excited about tomorrow and the next week. My son's 12th birthday is coming up in the next week, so that's something we'll be celebrating for sure. And every year you have your birthday to celebrate. So I love the celebration symbols and everything you're putting up. So and then as we think ahead, I think the past achievements are what have we accomplished so far in our lifetime. Future achievements might be, what do you want to accomplish in your lifetime? And Productive Flourishing is a website that I recommend, where they talk about how every 5 years on average is when you can complete a project. And so if you think about how many years you might have left in your life and you divide that by 5, that might be the number of big projects you might want to think about completing. And I think we talked about this in an earlier training, but as a reminder too, the impacts of what you do will reverberate through the future. And I've also been reading some topics about how if we don't take action, are we complicit in pushing forth the negative that's happening? And so what are the actions that we are going to take together so that our children and future generations will have a better world to live in? And I've actually put these as tabs into the templates for career shifters and social lifters, and we'll also go over that after I close out the slides, and we'll do an exercise together, I think, on kind of celebration and gratitude as we go into our final session next week for this program. And one other mastermind I was joining was called the Network of Women, and Angela Silva Mendez was on there, and she mentioned a book which just stood out to me because it's called Getting There by Being Here. And as you know, with our program, I've talked about getting from here to there, and we're working on this journey, endless lift upwards, with this limitless potential that I believe we each have. And at the same time, who we are now is enough, right? And being present with ourselves can really be important. And so the self-work that she says she's worked on for 30 years with embodied awareness is a crucial vehicle for social justice. And I think that is what true getting there is about, as well as being in our own kind of skin and happy with it. So again, please connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you can find me, as well as crackmycode.com/inkwhy as an ongoing way to assess your values and build a network of people who kind of know what our shared values are. And I appreciate everyone for joining, and hope that you will be at the last session, and look forward to continuing to grow with all of you.